Good morning, everyone, and welcome into Wake and Take. It's your boy Jason, and we have some football to talk about today. And we'll be discussing football with not just me. I'm having a very special guest joining us as we break down the Jonathan Taylor stuff, the free agent running back stuff, the training camp injuries, the offseason, really it all. So much football will be discussed. So why don't we go ahead and get right on into it? Today, I'm sipping coffee, I'm talking football, I'm joined with the Ahaan Rungta player profiler, one of our betting experts, the man that you need to go to if you have questions. I'm excited to have you on today, man. How you doing?
Not too bad. I can't drink coffee right now, but at least I got my Poland Spring water fresh off the Fantasy Football Expo. So we got the fantasy juices flowing. I've been grinding for bets all off season, but the fantasy juice is flowing as well now. So I'm ready.
Poland Spring water is what keeps not only Ahaan Rungta going, but that is today's sponsor for Wake and Take. Poland Spring water. Get it at your local supermarket today. So, man, as we do with the guests, I want to get your takes on stuff that's not totally current. You have some important insight on what's been going on, at least recently, even if it wasn't just yesterday. So why don't we just start things off with the biggest story of this week, and that's the Dalvin Cook and the Ezekiel Elliott signings. Do you have any takeaways from these guys?
Absolutely. Well, for starters, all offseason, I've been, if you follow me on Twitter, or if you were at the expo where I said this on a mic in front of hundreds of people, I'm a professional hater. So I've been spending the offseason not just talking about the guys I like, but obviously if you're going to back some guys, you got to fade some guys. And I've been clamoring for the fade Ramondre Stevenson trade. And as a Patriots fan, it's not been easy, but we know Bill Belichick by now, or at least I thought we knew Bill Belichick by now, is he wants a running back by committee. He will draft running backs. He won't play them enough. Kevin Harris is good, but he doesn't realize that. And he will sign guys like Zeke Elliott. And as soon as I saw the Zeke Elliott is working out for the Patriots news, I was like, as a Patriots fan, I hate my life and the sport is stupid. But as a fantasy manager, I want some Zeke Elliott just in case. We drafted at the Fantasy Football Expo. I got Zeke Elliott. He hadn't signed with anybody yet. And the gamble paid off there. Because Ramondre Stevenson wasn't a workhorse in college, wasn't a big pass catcher in college, very good on the field in the NFL, but it's Bill Belichick. We know he will, if he sees a window of opportunity for someone to goal line snipe, he will take it. And what has Zeke been doing the last couple of years? Taking away goal line touches from Tony Pollard. By the way, Tony Pollard RB1 season is here. But Zeke Elliott's going to take away these goal line touches and possibly some of the pass catching work as well. So all my worries for Ramondre Stevenson have now been confirmed.
Yeah.
And now his price will drop and maybe he'll become affordable. But I would take some Zeke Elliott in best ball. So that's my take on the Patriots backfield.
Yeah. I think I'm with you there. I understand that Ezekiel Elliott's going to be taking away some touchdowns. And I'm definitely excited for the value drop for Ramondre Stevenson. I do have 0% exposure to him. It wasn't necessarily that I was fading. It's just that I didn't necessarily like the cost either. So I'm excited to maybe get some of him. He still will get the pass catching work, in my opinion. Even as you said, he didn't really do it in college. He's just shown enough of it at the NFL level to where I think he can do it. And in my opinion, too, out of the free agent running backs that were out there, the big name ones, Zeke Elliott was probably best case scenario. Would you agree with me there?
For the Patriots, for the Patriots, for Ramondre Stevenson, both, I think probably yes, just because I guess we'll talk about Dalvin Cook in a minute, but Dalvin Cook last year was actually, in that good Vikings offense. He wasn't necessarily the most efficient, but he was there and he was relevant. He's still a solid football player. And I don't know if we can say that about Zeke, because Zeke just, you've been through injuries or whatnot, but he's just not been efficient. And Tony Pollard's clearly been the much, much better running back there. But Dalvin Cook, it does hurt my Breece Hall exposure because I thought we were getting a great discount on Breece Hall because, coming off the ACL, this is one of the great prospects of our generation. We at PlayerProfiler have been saying for a long time, this is Jonathan Taylor version 2. And here we have Dalvin Cook, who was relevant quite a bit in the fantasy scene last year. He's going to take away touches all over the field from Breece Hall. So not only am I not excited about the Jets as a team, I'm just not excited about ownership of any of these dudes. And in best ball, I think I don't like owning my own handcuff, but in best ball, it's certainly fine to have Breece Hall and Dalvin Cook. I see some teams with Breece Hall and Dalvin Cook, and I think those teams are still fine. But it's worrisome from a regular league standpoint.
Yeah, this whole Jets offense, as you brought up, it's really tough to get a piece of any of it. It's kind of reminded me of like the Broncos last year where everyone just is expecting everyone to be really good and is just pricing it in. When to me and to you and to many smart fantasy football managers, you've got to see it happen first. And so I'm like you, I'm uncomfortable at really all of these ADPs. I feel like there's just a better option for the most part. Could they pan out? Yes. Will they? Probably. But can I say for certainty? Definitely not. And it's tough. I do still think, though, in terms of Breece Hall, in terms of this Dalvin Cook thing, has Dalvin Cook seen an increase in ADP, hasn't he?
He definitely has over the last few days.
Yeah. So I don't know if that was really deserving. I feel like he basically should have stayed level because he was already going in like the 8th round without being on a team. And I think that's fair. Breece Hall dropping a bit, also a little fair. I think both will probably be fine. Like you said, I like the teams with both of them. I think that'll work out pretty well. But like you said, Breece Hall is one of the best prospects of our generation. I mean, he should still be efficient enough even with the limited snap share, right?
Which is why I'm fine with I'm taking the dip on Breece Hall if he's going to dip over the next few days in best ball specifically, because if he gets any red zone touches at any point, he's going to be efficient. Like we saw what he did in that game where he tore his ACL. He had 2 touchdowns in the first half and all was good in the world until that 10-minute span where 5 of my Scott Fishbowl players got hurt in a span of 10 minutes, one of which was Breece Hall. So yeah.
That was a rough week for me too, man. I literally traded for Breece Hall that Sunday morning. And I saw the 2 touchdowns. I was like, yes, it's all working out, baby. And then nope. So anyway, that's fantasy football. That's why we like it. Let's go ahead and move on to just the rest of the free agent running backs that are available. Just some speculation. You don't even have to talk about what you're expecting. Just some speculation. Throw it out there.
Well, the elephant in the room has to be the Minnesota Vikings.
Yep.
Well, the one elephant in the room has to be the Minnesota Vikings. The other elephant in the room has to be Kareem Hunt. But I'm combining it into one because I think the Minnesota Vikings will sign Kareem Hunt. Another name I've been clamoring to fade all offseason long is Alexander Madison. We have seen him be good when he's on the field, when he has to take over that role for Dalvin Cook. That does not always translate to taking over the workhorse role for a full season. And in my opinion, he is not capable of that. I said this on Twitter. I got attacked for it. I later found out that the man who was attacking me for it was Alexander Madison's father. So I'm sorry, but I'm a fantasy football account. He's a great player when he's getting those touches, but it's a full season. I don't want to see him get hurt, right? Like, look,
No.
this is what I'm trying to say. And to maximize his efficiency, the Vikings will probably add to that backfield. They've been looking all over the place for running backs, not just signing a relevant player like Kareem Hunt, but they've been looking all over the field, landing or working out guys who haven't played in the NFL recently. So they clearly realize that's an area of need, and I think they'll end up signing Kareem Hunt. So in this draft where I took Zeke Elliott, I also took Kareem Hunt just because it's fun to troll in a live draft, but also I do see the upside if he lands with the Vikings in that offense, which should still be pass heavy. He should catch a lot of passes out of the backfield if that does happen. So that's my landing spot for him. And then the other guy is Leonard Fournette, who was quietly the running back 12 last year, but he's been through a lot with the injuries, especially the foot. You saw all those kinds of memes about his foot, like how it's barbecue chicken, but he seems pretty confident on Twitter that he can still play. And I'm never one to talk about players as tweets and use that as a narrative unless it agrees with my narrative, of course. And my narrative is that if Leonard Fournette does land with a decent offense, he can be a best ball man. It's kind of like Zeke going to the Patriots where he takes away those goal line touches. Leonard Fournette is still experienced, can still play. And he'll probably land with some team, just maybe not an ideal team. Like, what if Jonathan Taylor just doesn't play? Is that potentially a landing spot for Leonard Fournette? It's ugly, but it could happen.
Yeah, and we'll talk about Jonathan Taylor here in a second. I want to first backtrack to the Vikings with you 100%. I think Alexander Madison's an easy fade. I mean, even if they don't bring in anyone. But again, they weren't paying Alexander Madison enough. It's an average of $3 million a year. It's not enough for them to truly commit to him. And it's also leaving money on the table. They didn't have to pay Dalvin Cook. He's gone now. That money is there. So it makes a ton of sense for them to bring in another running back. And Kareem Hunt on the Vikings sounds pretty sweet. It really, really does. In terms of Fournette, one landing spot that I keep in the back of my head, I honestly don't know why I keep thinking this, but I just truly, firmly believe it's going to be the Chargers. It's like a total left field team. But it just keeps speaking to me. Leonard Fournette on the Chargers, maybe a mid-season thing, but coming in from behind Austin Eckler every once in a while. That's the one I'm looking into. But you brought up Jonathan Taylor, who had an update on his little holdout, his injury, whatever the hell is going on with this man. And yesterday, Adam Schefter tweeted out, after returning to Indianapolis on Monday, Colts running back Jonathan Taylor now has left again due to a personal matter. His absence is excused. Is this Calvin Ridley again?
I hope not, just because, I don't want to wish ill on anybody's mental health, but clearly it's a concern. And do we know if it has to do with the money? I don't know, but it's certainly concerning. It's a running back. We all know that the running backs have not been treated the most kindly on the market this season, and it makes sense. Like this is not a running backs league right now. And from a business standpoint, I didn't want even my Patriots paying $6 million for Zeke Elliott. I think I was complaining about that. So it's understandable that running backs are going to be an iffy situation going forward. And it also circles back to something that the Podfather mentioned on Mind a Mansion yesterday with Dave Kluge, which was zero RB is the new hero RB. And there's a reason you're seeing such a shift in that is because why take risks on elite running backs early when you can just get your hero in the late rounds? And it's a reason I have not been taking Jonathan Taylor at price early, but also I'm seeing some second and third round Jonathan Taylor. And when I see that, I'm clicking the button because if he plays alongside Anthony Richardson, the ceiling is unreal.
Yeah, I think I'm more on the third round side, depending on who's around. See? I'm in the camp that Anthony Richardson does limit Jonathan Taylor's ceiling. Are you at all worried about that, or are you kind of able to look past that?
I think I'm able to look past that just because I'm not a believer in Anthony Richardson as a passer in year one. I think the ceiling is obviously there. I mean, we saw it with Lamar Jackson. It's not a perfect comp because Lamar Jackson was a better passer in college, but it's I could see a leap later on in Anthony Richardson's career. I don't see it in 2023 where he's immediately a good passer, and I think teams will very quickly learn that you want to stop Anthony Richardson from running, which could open up lanes for Jonathan Taylor. So I don't know the exact. It's hard to know the exact splits with a rookie quarterback running, especially. It's hard to see that because it's such a random variable.
It is.
But I'm not worried about Jonathan Taylor if I get him like late second round onwards. I'm pushing the button because that usually means I've taken an elite wide receiver or Travis Kelce in the first round, and I'm fine with the ceiling of Jonathan Taylor at that price.
Definitely. And before we move on from him, you're buying Jonathan Taylor in Dynasty and redraft in general. Like, are you sending out offers where you can?
Absolutely. I mean, I've talked about Brees Hall for so long, every time I talk about Brees Hall, I say Jonathan Taylor 2.0 or Jonathan Taylor 1.0. He's still very good, and in an offense where it's going to be a lot of run, it's going to be a lot of ugly, and they're going to be behind a lot. If he plays, he's going to catch passes, he's going to score touchdowns, he's going to be a top 5 running back if he plays a full season.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, even if it's not the Colts, even if he ends up somewhere else, he's just a premier talent. You can definitely capitalize on the trepidation right now that a lot of Jonathan Taylor owners have for sure. So I believe, actually, wait, just one quick storyline then, actually, of just overall. Rookie quarterbacks are all starting week one, the big three at least. This is probably the first time it's happened. Normally there's a little bit of a waiting period before this, but all three of these guys really projected to be elite talents. Are you excited to see this? Do you have any thoughts on these quarterbacks in general?
Yeah, my thoughts are that my best ball teams early in the offseason with Gardner Minshew were sad because I definitely thought Anthony Richardson would be sitting. And we all know that Gardner Minshew is probably going to, Anthony Richardson's going to get a little banged up. Gardner Minshew is going to start in, week 8? I don't even know if that's their buy or not. I'm just saying a number. Gardner Minshew will start week 8. He'll throw 4 touchdowns. He'll start week 9. He'll suck. And then week 10, Anthony Richardson will be back and everything will be back to normal. But that 1 week of Gardner Minshew, I'm looking forward to it.
All right. Who's your rookie quarterback one?
So for fantasy this season, I'm not going to overthink it. For the rushing upside, my rookie quarterback one is Anthony Richardson. I did not have him as a top 3 quarterback by talent in the draft. But for fantasy, I mean, there's a reason his price is QB12. I'm not taking him at QB12. I think Billy Musi also said this. QB12 is kind of crazy because if you run the numbers, which Dario Offstein Analytics has been doing the numbers all offseason, go look at their projections. If you assume that you get a ceiling outcome from Anthony Richardson where he is a decent passer and he is playing at a high pace and he's reaching his rushing ceiling. You look at the history of what rushing quarterbacks have done. Even if he hits that ceiling outcome, it's probably more of a QB 15 and not a QB 12 in that sort of offense. So I'm not taking him at QB 12, but I do think he ends up leading all quarterbacks in fantasy points per game in 2023. And if you miss out on that high price tag, good for you because you're probably passing up on the right ADP. Later in the draft, I'm fine with CJ Stroud. I see some rushing upside there with CJ Stroud. I think he has actual weapons. I think Bryce Young also has actual weapons, but my boy Terrace Marshall, I've used his name a lot this offseason. He is hurt. He's probably going to miss the first few weeks. And there's a lot going on with that offense in general, in addition to the fact that I think Bryce Young is undersized and has some other concerns surrounding him. CJ Stroud, I think, is more ready for the NFL. He has multiple decent pass catchers. Robert Woods coming off a torn ACL, but he's still good if healthy. Tank Dell, the hype has been rising now. The Breakout Finder earlier this season said Tank Dell was solid, so you should have bought in on Tank Dell earlier. Tank Dell is real good, and they got another experienced guy in Dalton Schultz. So CJ Stroud is the late rookie quarterback that you want.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. I can't think of a single really negative on CJ Stroud this year. besides the fact he had a rough preseason start. But that's just what it is for a rookie quarterback. If someone got worried, I'd be buying him. I mean, you mentioned all the players too, but a fantastic coaching staff behind him too. I mean, DeMeco Ryans changing that culture. You've got a Shanahan tree offensive coordinator and Bobby Slowick. It's like, what else do you want, guys? What else do you want? Go get CJ Stroud. Go get CJ Stroud. So the training camps right now, especially yesterday, we're on to the current news, has been brutal. We had injuries to Treylon Burks, Russell Gage, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamison Williams, probably more. Oh, Jordan Addison landed on concussion protocol. We'll talk about the big ones. We'll start things off with Jamison Williams, as it came out this morning that the hamstring injury will be keeping him out for the entire preseason. For the entire preseason. He'll be fine, of course, by the time he returns from suspension in week 7. But are you starting to get concerned? I mean, I know here at Player Profiler, especially the Podfather, deeming him a bust already. Are you on that side?
I'm not a big a great player in college who has been dealt tough cards early in his career is a bust to train quite yet. I reserve the word bust for guys like Romeo Dubs, but I'm sorry, had to. But obviously, for fantasy, I haven't really drafted much Jameson Williams this offseason at all, just because in that offense, I don't think we need to overcomplicate it with Amon-Ra St. Brown. And I think something that me and the Podfather are on the same page of is Amon-Ra St. Brown he's my 103. He's the Podfather's 103. He's Player Profiler's 107 in the projections, but I'm taking Amon-Ra St. Brown a lot in the first round if I have that little icky middle of the first round spot. I don't think we need to overcomplicate that offense much. They are still sticking with these 2 running backs that provide slightly different skill sets. And people are taking Jahmyr Gibbs high for good reason. He was drafted early. Draft capital for a running back like that is prime, right? He's going to get his. David Montgomery is going to get his touchdown, taking over the Jamal Williams role. But yeah, I'm not interested in Jamison Williams. You saw they tried to ramp him back up very, very slowly. I think first week back, he got like 9 routes last year. Yeah. He's not going to be very relevant in 2023. I'll just say it. If you're in deep leagues and someone dropped him because they want players who play now, you can maybe pick him up closer to his return and hope for a spike week against a bad defense. But unless he faces a broken play this season, I don't think he's scoring many fantasy points. And it's just sad to say. I will buy the dip on him in Dynasty because I think if healthy, he's a good player, and I believe in him as a talent. But for the Lions, keep it simple. Draft your David Montgomery, draft your Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Okay. See, I'm on the Jamison Williams hype train. I think he can produce this year. He's one of my most owned players in best ball formats because I don't have to think about it. And I do like the upside that you can get in the 10th and 11th round with him. But I mean, I do see all the concerns. And the dropped passes, the only 1 touchdown and 1 catch last year. I mean, and of course, how much targets Amon-Ra St. Brown takes. So it's definitely reasonable. It really just comes down to how much risk can you take. So let's go ahead and talk about now Treylon Burks, who avoided the worst case scenario. He was carted off yesterday with a knee injury. He sprained his LCL, is only expected to be out a few weeks. Probably will miss like week 1, maybe week 2. You still in on him, or were you in on him?
I wasn't a big Treylon Burks 2023 redraft fantasy guy, but I'm a big guy on him on Dynasty, just because Dynasty you see elite talent, take elite talent on your team. It's not that complicated. Mm-hmm. But for redraft, you have to think about what kind of game scripts will they land? What kind of, what will the quarterback situation be? And that was in question for a while with Ryan Tannehill. And then they drafted Will Levis, and then you're like, okay, Ryan Tannehill is going to start. And then they go ahead and sign DeAndre Hopkins a few weeks after I tweet DeAndre Hopkins post-injuries, age 31 is still better than Gabe Davis. And DeAndre Hopkins, he can still play. Look at his stats from last season. He still earned 29% target share, number 4 in the NFL with Marquise Brown around. Number 17 in yards per route run. Number 4 in route win rate. That was 30-year-old DeAndre Hopkins. He can still play. People are drawing parallels to former wide receivers just like finishing up their career and being terrible in Tennessee. I don't see it because none of those wide receivers were really, really good the previous season. And that's the case with DeAndre Hopkins. So I'm all in on DeAndre Hopkins, which is weird to say for a run-first offense like this, but I think the Titans will be behind a lot. They're not going to. They're not just going to play every game ahead like they often have the last couple of years in a tough division. They're going to face the Jags twice, and I think they're going to play from behind in both games. So I'm taking DeAndre Hopkins, and that's probably the only wide receiver that, or the only pass catcher in that offense that I'm just like obviously taking a lot of. There's another guy in that offense who is quietly, or not quietly, but pretty good. And for some reason, his ADP has dropped because of DeAndre Hopkins, and I don't get the big drop. He started off the offseason as the tight end 12 off the board in Underdog. Now he's a tight end 16. Chigakonkwo at tight end 16 is fantastic value to me, just because half PPR, right? He's going to get those short yardage plays just because he's so good after the catch. You want premium athletic profiles at tight end. Like this, just if you blindly do that in Dynasty and redraft, you'll probably be successful because once you miss out on the Travis Kelce and Mark Andrews, like you're not going for like what do you do if you go for athletic or non-athletic profiles in good situations? You land with Jake Ferguson. What do you do if you just chase athletic talent? You land guys like Evan Engram, who was a steal last year. You land guys like Chigakonkwo. So I'm all in on Chigakonkwo as this tight end 16 price because I think he's going to have several weeks where he's a top 10 tight end.
Definitely. I'm with you there. I love the athleticism for Chigakonkwo, and I love the usage too. I mean, in college, he was used out of the backfield to run sometimes. I mean, we can maybe see that in Tennessee. He's all over the place. And finally, the worst news from yesterday was that Russell Gage is out for the season with a knee injury. I don't think they've come out to say if it was ACL, MCL, LCL, or whatever, but just out for season with a knee injury. Obviously, sort of buried on the depth chart, kind of a darling more so last year in terms of value, and people are staying away from the Bucs offense anyway. So really just want to say sorry to Russell Gage. Maybe we're taking a chance on some Trey Palmer.
Absolutely. Trey Palmer is not bad. And as much as it may sound boring to say, Chris Godwin is going to have some wide receiver 1 weeks. I'm just saying it now. When it happens, don't be annoyed that he's not on your team because he's going to have wide receiver 1 weeks. This team is not good. And Baker Mayfield will want to heave to Mike Evans. And I think people are in on that Baker Mayfield to Mike Evans connection. But like when someone's wide open 10 yards down the field and he makes the catch, and then he does that 5 more times in a game, that's like 7-8 fantasy points right there in garbage time alone. And then all of a sudden, at the end of the week, you're like, wait, Chris Godwin was a wide receiver 10? And then you're annoyed. So don't be annoyed then. Take Chris Godwin now in redraft because Cade Otton, I like the man. I liked him as a prospect, but he did not look good last year at all when he did get his shot. Trey Palmer is solid, but he's still a rookie. Mike Evans has dealt with a lot on his body over the last few years. And I'm not a big translate Vegas lines to fantasy football production guy because I'm not a big, just translated blindly guy. But it is noteworthy that Mike Evans is going for a streak of 1,000-yard receiving seasons. And the Vegas line for Mike Evans receiving yards has kept going down and is now below 950. So it is noteworthy that Vegas thinks that Mike Evans is not going to get to those 1,000 yards. Draft Chris Godwin.
Yeah, draft Chris Godwin. I mean, there's tons of value to be found in the Bucs offense. It's the opposite of the Jets, really, where everyone's projecting them to be bad. And so you can get them for cheap as opposed to the Jets where everyone wants them to be good and they're expensive. So, Ahaan, we've talked about injuries. We've talked about some recent news. I want to just give you a little bit of a chance to talk about what you've got going on. First thing, you wanted to, give me a little bit of a now versus then kind of thing. How you're looking at some players now, how you were looking at them early in the offseason. Why don't you tell the audience what you've been up to?
So things that I've done that are already up on PlayerProfiler is I dropped 4 NFL regular season best bets for teams, over-unders on wins, one division bet. And it was dropped in article form a month ago, and most of those lines you can still get at exactly that same price now. And yesterday, a video version came out as well, just in case my voice is so soothing to you that you want to hear more of it. You can listen to the video version, okay? It's there on the Player Profiler YouTube. And the biggest bet, I'll just say it if in case you haven't seen it yet, my biggest preseason bet of the year is New York Jets under 9.5 wins. I couldn't believe that was plus money. And you mentioned the Broncos. I don't know if, Jason, you've been seeing my tweets or you've been reading my content, but I'm pretty sure I started off the video with, these are the Denver Broncos of 2023.
Oh, wow.
Other than Garrett Wilson, I pretty much don't believe in anybody on that offense. Obviously, Breece Hall, but how much running backs don't matter that much for team wins in the regular season. Other than Garrett Wilson, I'm not a huge believer in that offense. That defense is going to keep them in games. It's going to win them maybe. That defense alone is going to single-handedly win them 7 games. But I think 10 is a very high bar in a good division, probably outside my Patriots. The Dolphins and Bills are both very, very good. And I think the floor for this Jets team is 4th place. And I think realistically they're a 3rd place team. So that's my biggest bet of the season. And the other one that I want to talk about is I dropped another article, which was 3 Super Bowl bets. The Chiefs are the favorites, plus 600. Makes sense. They're rightfully the favorites. I never take chalk. Last year, the Chiefs were kind of chalky, and I waited till the playoffs to bet them every single game. That worked out. That's better value than taking them plus 600 before anything happens. Yeah. But the chalkiest thing I did place, I placed 2 long shots, but I saw the Bengals at plus 1,100, and I was like, this could very well be the most well-rounded team in the NFL when it's all said and done. And I saw that they were plus 1,100. I saw the Eagles were shorter than them. The 49ers were shorter than them. And, of course, the Chiefs were shorter than them. And the Bills were shorter than them. I'm like, I see the Bengals possibly getting revenge on the Chiefs. I think the Bengals are still more well-built for the playoffs than the Bills. So why not take plus 1,100 on them? Then Joe Burrow gets hurt. And then Vegas gives you a little sign. How long has it been since Joe Burrow got hurt? Take a look at that line. It's still plus 1,100. So Vegas doesn't think that Joe Burrow is in deep trouble. So maybe a sign that he will either be ready for week 1 or, it won't be too affected. I think he'll play at most by week 3. If they go 1-1 in those 2 games that he doesn't play, we're fine. They're going to make the playoffs. He's going to play most of the season. Patrick Mahomes is playing the entire Super Bowl last year on 1 foot. Yeah. Joe Burrow, just get healthy in time for the playoffs, and they can make a run. So I'll just say it. The Bengals are my pick to win the Super Bowl this year. My preseason pick. I'm picking them over the Chiefs. I'm picking them over the Eagles. And they're still plus 1,100.
I love that. Let's go Bengals. I will always accept any bet on the Bengals every single time. Now, why don't you tell us a little bit about some players that you were looking at earlier in this offseason and how they're doing now?
Well, for starters, the draft was a very fun time for me, just a roller coaster of emotions. And it's weird if you talk to an average football fan and they say the NFL draft was a roller coaster of emotions. It's nobody's going to say that, right? But we take bets on the NFL draft. We hit plus 2,200 bets and Devon Witherspoon going number 5 to the Seattle Seahawks. We hit those. Yeah. And from a fantasy perspective as well, the NFL draft is a huge mover usually because, one, we have the Breakout Finder. If you haven't already downloaded the Breakout Finder, it's $5. You go to the Play Store, you download Breakout Finder, and you find out how good running backs and wide receivers are of this class and how that might translate to fantasy. You can see metrics to find out what specifically they are good at. For reference, last year, the Breakout Finder was very much ahead of Christian Watson. They told you that Christian Watson was real damn good. He's a big playmaker. And apparently people didn't realize that because they didn't download the Breakout Finder. So this year you can download the Breakout Finder. There are a lot of rookies that are polarizing. A certain head of Player Profiler may or may not be very low on a certain Chargers wide receiver, but I'm personally not I'm personally high on Quentin Johnston.
Yeah.
I'm using my airtime to say it. I like Quentin Johnston in 2023. The Breakout Finder thinks he's really good, and he's in perhaps the perfect landing spot.
Oh, yeah.
I have been dating Mike Williams all season long. I took Quentin Johnston to get drafted early or middle of the first round for the NFL draft. That hit. So I'm a big advocate of spotting the rookie wide receivers early, the ones that are good, the ones that are bad. I think Quentin Johnston in this offense will be good in 2023. I think Zay Flowers is a very, very good player, but I think he landed in an unideal landing spot for his 2023 fantasy value, but take all of him in Dynasty. And then how does this move for, the rest of the public is the Bucks going back to this garbage Bucks team. Rachaad White is going to be one of my heroes, maybe the number one target for zero running back teams. Because what did they add this offseason? Chase Edmonds. That's it. They just lost. Yeah. 4 on the depth chart, by the way. This is coming from someone who actually thought Keyshawn Vaughn was going to be decent. So Rachaad White's going to be my king of zero RB this year. Baker Mayfield's going to take those checkdowns when he needs it because he's simply going to have to. Like you said, Trey Palmer, good, but still rookie wide receiver. Rachaad White, I think still the highest receiver rating in Breakout Finder history, which means he, in college, knows how to catch the damn passes out of the backfield. He's going to do it in volume, and he's going to sneakily have running back one week after week with those PPR scoring, in that PPR scoring format. So Rachaad White was probably my biggest flag plant based on what happened this offseason. The fact that they got Baker Mayfield, who is still a top 30 a top 32 quarterback in the NFL. There are people who still disagree with this, but Kyle Trask was never the answer. I'm happy they went with Baker because this offense is going to score a few touchdowns every week, even if that requires garbage time, and Rachaad White's going to be a huge part of that. So that's my biggest flag plan of the offseason at running back, Rachaad White.
I love it. I love it. I mean, hey, we mentioned the garbage time earlier. One of the biggest benefactors of garbage time and hurry-up offenses is the pass-catching running back, as they just need to get some yards every single time. So, I mean, PPR formats, half PPR formats, even just regular formats. I mean, the dude's going to get used. Finally, give us one player, just one player, that you want the listeners to buy right now.
So I tweeted about this last night, and while a lot of people were asleep, granted, but I'm using my airtime to talk about the guy who his best player comp on PlayerProfiler is Dan Orlovsky. I tweeted about this, I think, a couple of years ago, and Dan Orlovsky retweeted it. He thought it was hilarious. And I think this year he is completely being slept on. I talked smack about Romeo Doubs just a few minutes ago. Romeo Doubs is not a top 4 pass catcher on this team. There are 4 good pass catchers, potentially 4 good pass catchers. I'll just say it. There are 4 good pass catchers on this team. None of them are Romeo Doubs. Aaron Jones, certified good player. He was just good year after year, underrated runner, and also catches passes out of the backfield. Christian Watson, among the league leaders in all kinds of efficiency metrics, explosive playmaking, and got snaps with Jordan Love last year and produced. People have this, I think analysts, oftentimes they're right, oftentimes they're wrong, but a lot of analysts have something in common, which is they see a player score a lot of touchdowns. They're like, I don't like that. And I don't understand this obsession with not liking players who score touchdowns. You have to look at what's sustainable and what's not. Gabe Davis scoring 4 touchdowns in a game is not sustainable because there are no efficiency metrics that tell you that Gabe Davis is an explosive playmaker. There are efficiency metrics that tell you Christian Watson is built to be in the red zone and to catch passes in the red zone. Christian Watson can continue this touchdown production. Then 2 players they drafted. I appreciate those sound effects. When I get a sound effect, it's just the happiest feeling in the world. But I'm glad you saved it for Christian Watson. There are 2 pass catchers that the Green Bay Packers drafted who are potentially real good. Yep. Jaden Reed, they spent a second-round draft pick on him. Go download the Breakout Finder and see where Jaden Reed ranks. Spoiler alert, he's higher than Zay Flowers. Wow. So Jaden Reed is potentially a really good player. Many comps to Stephon Diggs. Obviously, he's not going to be Stephon Diggs. He's not going to produce like Stephon Diggs. for a while, but the talent is there. And then a second round tight end. What did I just say about chasing tight end profiles? I'm not saying that Luke Musgrave is going to be a tight end one in 2023 because rookie tight ends just don't do that often. But he helps this pass catching group.
Definitely.
He's throwing to all these dudes. By Jordan Love, he's the only quarterback being drafted outside of the top 15 who has potentially 4 good pass catchers and who's going to be the starter all year. He's being drafted as the QB 50 or QB 20 on Underdog, and I think he has top 13, 14 upside, especially if he rushes just a little bit. Give me 20 yards a game rushing, top 13 quarterback.
Yeah, no, I'm loving the Jordan Love hype right now, especially, I mean, you're seeing all these clips from camp. I mean, in college, you know, he had a lot of interceptions, but he was not afraid to sling it. He led his conference in yards per attempt every single year. And so that bodes well for these pass catchers and for the offense in general. I really don't think it's going to be as slow as people are expecting. Last year's Packers with dusty Aaron Rodgers were slow. With now the young and improved Jordan Love, they're going to be speedy. They're going to be throwing the ball. And I think it really could be electric, especially towards the end of the season as they start to get their sea legs. Now, let's go ahead. We have a few questions in the chat before I get you out of here. I want to check them out. And the first one was, it was specifically at you. They want to get a Pats fan's take on Malik Cunningham.
I made people mad on Twitter when I said this, and I'll make people mad on air when I'm saying this. Malik Cunningham is the QB2 of this team. I hope Bill Belichick realizes this. Bailey Zappi is not good.
Hey.
I've said this on air before. Bailey Zappi is not good. He's not. Malik Cunningham is the QB2 on this team after Mac Jones. I want to see some Jacoby Brissett packages from Malik Cunningham in the red zone. I want to see it. It's probably not going to happen.
I don't know. I think it could happen. If any coach is going to do something on his way out of the league that's a little bit weird, it's going to be Bill Belichick starting the 2-quarterback system. And we've got another Patriots player question. 12-team PPR. They have Ramondre, and they were offered Zeke and Cordero Patterson. I would say I would not do this. I'm a big Cordero guy.
Offered Zeke for Cordero Patterson.
Oh, sorry. Probably do that. Yeah.
When you have a player who's going to score 7 touchdowns for absolutely no reason, you got to do it.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, Cordero maybe has a little bit more usage potential, but getting that handcuff to Ramondre and probably more touchdowns going Zeke's way for sure. Javonte Williams and Jamison Williams were traded for Breece Hall. How do you feel about that?
I like it. I'm not a big Javonte guy. They drafted Samaje, or not drafted. They acquired Samaje Perine for a reason, is because those running back injuries, the type that he just had, are scary. And Jameson Williams there's a high probability that Jameson Williams is completely fantasy irrelevant in 2023. Get that upside with Breece Hall. I love it.
Yep, definitely great move. And the last question on here is Kyler worth an early 24 first in Dynasty, assuming a super flex? Yes. Single QB, I might hold on to that pick given the players that are coming out.
Completely on the same page. You're the trade god anyway. There is a page called playerprofiler.com/trade-analyzer, and you can set settings for the league to find out if that's a fair trade or not. These projections are updated very regularly. These dynasty values are updated very regularly. Billy Muzio and Dario Offstein work hard. I've seen them not comb their hair for like a week or a month, but I've seen them do the projections, look at the projections every morning. So they are regularly updated, I believe, in the trade analyzer.
Definitely. They are. And they do fantastic work over there, as does the rest of the Player Profiler team, as do you, Ahaan. Thank you so much for joining me today. Why don't you go ahead and tell the people where they can find you and maybe about a show that you're hosting?
Yeah, so I'll be on Twitter at Ahaan Rungta, like basically 24/7. I'll be posting fantasy football takes like I did last night with Jordan Love, but more specifically, I'll be doing betting content. I've been grinding to, looking at these player profile projections, but also making my own over the entire offseason. There are projections on Underdog Fantasy for pick'ems for the NFL season, and you can compare them with sports books. And you could join Underdog if you haven't already. I believe we have a promo code for that's going to be advertised more regularly going forward, because I am potentially starting a show with another member of Player Profiler, who will announce that himself later,
Yep.
to talk about underdog pick'ems every week. If you're in a state that cannot bet on football, that's fine, because you might have underdog available.
Yep.
And underdog pick'em entries are awesome because you could combine things in the same game, things not in the same game, and get some good value on potentially slower lines than the sports books. And it's a great way to get in on this player prop action without having to gamble, in the way that others do. And the first show will be before the season starts, and we'll be constructing an entry for the full season. So futures,
Right.
as like a Josh Allen rushing touchdowns on the full season. I think that line is set at 7, something like that. So all this work is coming to fruition, and we will be hosting a show twice a week to talk about weekly underdog pick'ems, as well as I will be releasing my own betting content on playerprofiler.com/articles, along with some video content for those who cannot get enough of my face.
Yep. If you like money, you need to be following Ahaan Rungta. Genuinely some fantastic picks sent out all year long. And then make sure you tune into that show as well. And you mentioned the underdog promo. I do believe it is Underworld. And I believe it is a first deposit match of up to $100. So go use that, people. Listeners, Ahaan, everyone, thank you so much for tuning in today. Thank you so much for joining me. Everyone have a fantastic Thursday. I hope to see you all tonight on Trade Gods at 8 p.m. Have a good one. Peace.
Hey, I want to take a moment to thank you for tuning in. It's important to me that all of our media be free. This is only possible because of you, allowing a true independent sports media enterprise to thrive unlike any other in the business. So please subscribe to the All In Package to continue to make all this possible, to ensure that all of our stats, information, data, content is available to you, especially you, the people that get the site and get the show.